Okie dokie. Well, I'll go ahead and get us started if that's okay with everyone while you're putting your favorite local food in the chat. Hello to all of you guys, and thank you for attending our last session of the Maize and Blue Cupboards Learning Series. Very exciting. Today, we're joined by Dr. Lisa Young, who will present on the topic of food at the University of Michigan. Lisa Young is a lecturer in the Department of Anthropology. As an archaeologist, she uses the past as a lens to examine our food systems today. She's particularly interested in locally produced food, which was the source of food for all cultures until the recent past and continues to be essential today for sustainability and food sovereignty. With that, I will turn it over to Lisa.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Given what you have been typing in as your favorite local food, you all know a lot about the local food system already. So some of this may be background information for you, but I'm glad you could join us. And I'm going to do a short presentation about some aspects of local food and how it relates to the University of Michigan. And just to give you a little background about me, I was an undergrad here in the 1980s, and I had loved local food for a long time, but I was so happy to be in Ann Arbor and discover there was a farmer's market here, and that was my place to escape to on non-football weekends when I wanted to get away and get off of campus a little bit. And I went occasionally, mostly in the fall, to get cider and donuts, just like the rest of you. But over the years, and since I moved back to Ann Arbor in the 1990s, I've really gotten more and more interested in our local food system. And as an archaeologist, I study small-scale farmers in northeastern Arizona, but also wanted to be thinking about what the farmers are doing here, because Michigan is an amazing place to think about local food. So I'm going to talk a little bit about local food at the University of Michigan, how it relates to sustainability, and then also just introduce you to where you can get local food and how to think about the challenges of local food, including the expense of it. So we'll just do a little brief introduction. I've got some polling questions for you too, about halfway through, to check some of your knowledge about Michigan, actually just fun facts about local food and food in Michigan. And then at the end, I'm sure there's going to be time for us to have questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. So thank you for being here. I'm going to share my screen now. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So I love local food because people are so creative about using food for art as well. So here is, just shut this down. Yeah. Just an introduction. So we're going to be talking about not only food at the University of Michigan, but I'm really going to focus on local food at the University of Michigan. And I put my contact information on there. So if any of you have questions that you think of later, please feel free to get a hold of me. I love talking about local food and would love to learn about your experiences with local food as well. All righty, let's see if this will work. So one of the things that's interesting about local food is not only Ann Arbor is like this foodie town and there's so much local food, but local food has really become something that the University of Michigan is thinking very thoughtfully about. About 15 years ago, one of the chefs at East Quad was very passionate about local food, started trying to figure out ways to get local food into the dorms to serve it in East Quad. And there were a lot of people excited about it until some of the lettuce, I guess, came in and it had some caterpillars or something in it, and they didn't get cleaned out before they were served. And there was a daily article about there's bugs in the food at East Quad. And so they had to be thinking about food safety, and he rose to those challenges and works through them. But he helped start the dialogue about, could we bring local food into the U of M food to be serving students at U of M. And this conversation really got going hang on one second, let me see where there we go. Really got going in 2011 when the former president of the university, Mary Sue Coleman, had been thinking about sustainability and the campus for quite some time. And she really put forward a challenge of how do we make our campus more sustainable, and put together a team of people who did a variety of different perspectives on sustainability on campus, including energy and all the obvious ones, but a lot of people also wanted to think about food. And so the University of Michigan started setting itself goals to meet by the year 2025, which is coming up pretty soon. It seemed a long way off when they first developed them, but it's coming up. And these were some of the things that University of Michigan Dining started being the lead on sustainability in relationship to food. And what you can see is in this graphic is a lot of the things that Michigan Dining's been doing. They started out very early on composting the food waste from the dorms, and there's an amazing system that they use to take as much of the food waste from the dorms as possible, both as they're preparing the food and then as the plates of food come in to be cleaned, to collect that food waste and compost it. They also wanted to think about foods that were locally produced. And what you can see is there's also a variety of ways that foods are being produced. So you can see organic and fair trade is on there, hormone-free, and a lot of other waste reduction strategies, which is great. But then they were also thinking about local food and how could they incorporate more local food into the Michigan dining system. And so the question then is, if you're going to do local food, what does it mean? What does local food mean? Because if you look at the USDA studies, it means different things to different people. Some people use the 100-mile radius. Other people are like, oh, well, we should be thinking about a region, things like that. So U of M chose to set themselves a goal of purchasing 20% of their food that was local and or sustainable food, sustainably produced food by the year 2025. So sustainably produced would be including meat not produced at concentrated animal feeding operations, or CAFOs, a lot of times called factory farms. And then also local, and their definition of local that the University of Michigan uses is that it comes from within 250 miles. So things can be shipped in from Chicago, which is within 250 miles, and then a good chunk of Ohio, or it's part of the state of Michigan. So it's a very generous definition, but we are a state university and a public university, so having foods come from the state was very important to the definitions. So the university's been also tracking how they meet these goals, and there's actually national standards that they use for that tracking, because there were a lot of institutions of higher education that were saying, oh, yeah, we want to do local, but then how do you actually make a metric for doing that? And so these are the graphs that Michigan Dining puts out on an annual basis. They do a report working with the Office of Sustainability here at the University of Michigan. And this is the graph. So you can see starting in the year 2012, they were already had quite a bit of local and sustainable food. So it was about 13%. But what you can see is it fluctuates over time. It actually got pretty high and then started going down in 2019. And then during 2020, it's almost met that goal of 20%. And what I can't explain to you is actually why it's increased so much. One of the things that may have happened is one of the things that was drawing down the proportion of local food on campus was, and sustainable food purchases, was actually the U of M hospital, ironically. And the cafeteria there was not doing a great job getting sustainable and locally produced foods. So I have a feeling that that was taken out because University of Michigan Dining does not have any control over what was happening in the hospital. But I want to point out that when we think of Michigan Dining, we think about the dorms, but this also includes the foods that are in the cafes. So I often go get a cup of tea at the cafe at the art museum, and there's a lot of the to-go food is actually prepared by Michigan Dining. And so it falls into these sustainable and local food purchases. And then it also includes university catering. So when my department has an end of the year party or something like that, they often have Michigan catering prepare the food for that. And I really appreciate that because I know that the food that's there, there's been thought about, what can we purchase locally and or sustainably raised for that event. So then the question is, if we just focus on local food, how does the huge institution at the University of Michigan actually get local food into its system? Because Michigan Dining goes through so much food each day. I can't remember how many meals South Quad serves a day, but it is stunning on how much they serve. So you need a lot. And a lot of the local farms around here are small farms, and the university has partnered with small farms. These are two that they're still partnering with, which is the Tata Shucks. And if you go to the Ann Arbor Farmers Market, you can get food from them. This is actually a picture from the farmers market. And then if you lived in the dorms at any time during the fall, you may have seen this sign, which is Michigan Dining worked out a relationship with one of the local orchards, Lesser's Orchard, which does not sell at the Ann Arbor Farmers Market. You actually have to go out to his farm to get cider and apples, and they're only available during the fall season. That's when he opens things up to sell. Although you can get his honey and eggs anytime if you drive out, because they've just got a porch set up and you can go buy their things. They're in just outside of Dexter. Anyways, so the university worked out a relationship with him where they bought a lot of the smaller apples, so the ones that you can get and take with you after you eat lunch if you want a snack or something like that. So not as huge apples, but the small ones that are like lunchbox sized apples. And they had a relationship with more small farms as they started the local food initiative, but selling to such a big institution like the University of Michigan, the farmers needed to have an online bill submission. And in fact, Dale Lesser, I don't know if he actually owns a computer. So the Tata Shucks partnered with him so that they could help him do his online billing at the university rather than just bringing in a receipt and saying, oh, here, get me paid. And there were a lot of farms that were like, you know, this isn't part of what I want to do. I actually want to sell directly to customers. But these are two of the small farms that the university has maintained a long-term relationship with. And when there's the fall festival, and there's often farms that come to it, both Dale and the Tata Shucks will be there so that they can meet you and you can talk to them about the food that they're growing for the University of Michigan. The Tata Shucks, what they're doing each week is putting together a list of what produce they have available. It gets sent out to the chefs in the dining halls, and then they order directly from them. And then Jim comes and delivers actually onto the university, which that was another logistic thing. How do you grapple with small trucks in the loading docks at South Quad and the various other places when there's usually some huge trucks coming in to deliver. So because the university needed so much local food, and both of these small farms are relatively small, they have also developed a relationship with some larger organizations that are food aggregating organizations. And here's two of them. One of them, La Grasso's, is in Detroit, and they have been produce distributors for over 100 years. They have lots of great relationships with farms all over the United States. But with the University of Michigan, they have really worked hard to have the tracking so that they can say to the university, oh, these are the farms that we were getting this produce from, so that the university can then say, okay, this will help meet our local food goals. And if you go on the La Grasso's website, you can see a lot of the farms that they have relationships with. They are usually not small farms. They are what in Michigan would be called a medium-sized farm. And I actually don't know what that acreage is, the number for that acreage, but it's a larger farm. And then a relatively new organization called Michigan Farm to Freezer, which is amazing. There's one, I think, in Traverse City, but this is the picture of the sort of warehouse that's in Detroit. And what they do is they work with small and medium farms all over Michigan to get their produce, especially the fruits, at the peak of their season. And then they bring them into the warehouse, they process them down, and they freeze them as fast as possible. And if you need to buy frozen fruit, this is an amazing organization to buy from. And if you are eating in the dorms and you get some fruit from the yogurt bars, that frozen fruit, lots of strawberries and blueberries and things like that, most of that is coming from Michigan Farm to Freezer. So you are actually eating Michigan produce when you select fruit from the yogurt bars in the dorms. And the other thing, in terms of local food here on campus, is a lot of the local food initiatives have really been driven by students. Students saying, we want more local food, we want to think about sustainability. And one of the organizations that really developed out of thinking about the initiative, the Mary Sue Coleman's initiative about making the campus more sustainable, was the campus farm. And it started out as a group of master's students putting together some ideas and then saying, we need a farm on campus so that students can learn more about how their food is grown, what it looks like when it's growing, and just reconnect to food in general. And so the campus farm was established in 2012. And think about this, we are not the land grant university here in the state. Michigan State is. So there's lots of farming opportunities at Michigan State, besides all the other animal research opportunities that are there. But where do you find space on the University of Michigan campus for a farm? It actually started out in the land right near the Ginsburg Center at, what is that hill, and East University there, in the small plot there. And there started to be more and more interest in it, and more people interested in the food that was coming out from there. And initially, the food was just being shared amongst the people who worked there, and then with the folks in the Ginsburg Center too. But a few years after it was established, the then director of the Botanical Gardens was like, let's do this here at the Botanical Gardens so you can increase production. And once it started getting bigger at the Botanical Gardens, then they were able to hire a campus farm manager, just somebody to oversee the organization, because there was a part-time staff member doing it, but also doing a lot of different things, and she was amazing at doing it, but they needed somebody full-time. And that's who's in this picture in one of the hoop houses. This is Jeremy Mctater, who was hired to be the campus farm manager. But Jeremy's amazing. He had actually come from, he has a degree from University of Michigan, but he was the manager of the student organic farm up at Michigan State, and coming back to Michigan, was so excited to work with the students. And he is the staff member that then everybody else that is at the campus farm is a student or a student now or a recently graduated student. And the goal of the campus farm is to produce food that's grown, harvested, and prepared by U of M students for U of M students and the faculty and staff. And Jeremy's standing in a hoop house. This is a picture of him a couple of years ago from the end of October. And what I want you to see is that beautiful lettuce that he is standing in. And the amazing thing about Michigan is how many greens can be grown in the winter. It floors me every time I go to some place and be able to buy local lettuce in December and January and February here. It's really amazing. And it's because of this hoop house technology, which there's plastic that goes down. It when the sun's shining, it keeps the heat in. And sometimes if it gets real cold, then they cover the crops within there. But it's a real art to producing in those hoop houses. All right, so the other things that have been amazing about the campus farm is in 2017, they started selling to U of M dining. It took a little while to get that up and going because they needed to pass some food safety regulations. It's just common food, like don't spit in the fields and sort of things like that. So those were, they got that certification done. The students have chosen not to be organically certified. They are using organic practices, but not to actually go through that certification process. It's a fair amount of paperwork and you have to do it annually, and yeah, it can be a little bit bureaucratic. But they started selling to Michigan Dining in 2017. And by 2019, they were selling over $100,000 worth of produce to Michigan Dining. And the other lovely thing about the campus farm is they are incredibly generous. And so they regularly donate produce to the Maize and Blue Cupboard. And here's an example, I think from this fall, of some of the squash that came in from the campus farm. And then the students over the last couple of years have decided they also wanted to have a farm stand. And so if any of you were on campus in August through October on Thursday afternoons, there was this farm stand set up with produce from the campus farm that had been harvested either the day before or that morning. And the lovely thing about the farm stand is that they offer a 30% discount for students. So I was on campus one day, sort of towards the end of when they were selling, and I was so excited because I got some fresh ginger and I saw somebody put that as one of their favorite foods. So, all right. So one of the goals of M Dining is to really introduce students on campus to thinking about local food, introducing them to sustainable foods and foods that can really be showcased from Michigan, because Michigan Dining provides some of the first food experiences for many of the students for out of state on the rich diversity of food from Michigan. And Michigan is an amazing place to think about local food. So what I want to do now is actually do a little poll to see what you know about food at University of Michigan. And I just want to show you both questions, and then Victoria is going to launch the poll here. So the first question is, what are the number of different agricultural products produced in Michigan? I give you a bunch of choices. And when I mean agricultural product, the way that's defined is like Michigan is known for a lot of dried beans. and especially cranberry beans and black beans. So those are two different types of agricultural products. It also includes flours and like it even includes soft serve ice cream. But so I want you to guess that, and I'll tell you why that's important. And then the second question is, Michigan is the top producer of which of these fruits? And I put some standard fruits that we often think of from Michigan. So Victoria, if you want to launch the poll and everybody can take a second to take a guess on it. Okay.
I've shared the results with you if you can see them.
Let's see. So, let's see. Yeah, I think I can see the results. So I would just want to, can everybody else see the results or no?
Yes, they're giving me thumbs up, so I think that they can.
All right. So that first question about agricultural products, the answer is actually 300. I loved that you all thought it was more. And the reason that number is important is because in terms of the diversity of agricultural products that Michigan grows, it is the second most diverse state in the entire country. The first is California, and I actually don't know what the number is for California, but I bet it's closer to that 400. Having 500 agricultural products would be amazing, but a lot. And the answer to the second question about the fruits, I put in some trick answers because everybody thinks of apples from Michigan, but it is not one of the top. I mean, it's in the top 5, but it is not, it's not we are not the top in the nation in terms of apples. And the sweet cherries was a trick question because we are the top producer of tart cherries, but not sweet cherries. And the correct answer for that was blueberries. So my point of all this was to show you we live in this state with amazing food. And so we all, and here in Ann Arbor, local food is actually really easy to come by. And so there's actually a lot of promoting of local food in Ann Arbor. And one of the organizations that does that is called Taste the Local Difference. And this is a graphic that they put together just to get people to think about why would you want to buy local food? Not only because it's something cool to do here in Michigan, because we have so many agricultural products, but there are actual economic reasons, like that it helps the local economy and small businesses in the local economy. Many of the farmers here in Michigan, throughout the state of Michigan, and really here in Ann Arbor, do direct marketing to consumers. So you can actually talk to the people who are producing your food. And that cuts down on the food miles, so how far the food is being transported, which does save on fuel. And the amount of transport is really important for those foods that have short shelf lives and that need to be kept under cool conditions. So if you think about the lettuce you can buy in the grocery store at actually starting now, in November and December and January, that lettuce is being produced in Southern California and Southern Arizona in the desert because it's warm enough. It needs lots of irrigation and it's got to be picked fast and kept cool and gotten to us. And that's why lettuce, if you buy it at the store, especially if you buy the bagged lettuce, it usually only lasts like less than a week. But you can buy fresh lettuce here in Michigan because those farmers are growing the lettuce in their hoop houses. And oh my gosh, it tastes so much better. And it lasts at least a week longer. It's also fresher. It hasn't lost the nutrients. And then I love this social impact thing, because this is what I think about as an anthropologist, is that there's a lot of social interactions that happen around local food, but socially there's so many different things that are important about local food. But I just want to share with you why I buy local food whenever I can. It's to support those local farmers and to really think about a local food system. Ann Arbor has a pretty robust local food system, but I think it could be even better. So not only the producers and the consumers, but everything in between, like the cheesemakers and the bakers and the people who grow the wheat and being able to grind the wheat like Zingerman's does, where they get their wheat from Michigan farmers and then they grind it themselves, the whole thing that goes together to bring us amazing local food. I also like to know who's growing my food and how it's been produced so I can ask them, hey, were you putting fertilizers on there to produce the food? What sort of pest control, things like that. I also just like shopping for local food because I like to run into people and I like to talk to the farmers, but that's the anthropologist coming out in me. And the local food tastes better. If you've never had local eggs from the local farmers, get some sometime and then compare them in price to the ones you'd buy at Costco or the cheap ones at the grocery store. You'll taste the difference. And local milk too, you can really taste the difference with that. So there are barriers to local food. It's an extra shopping trip, and this map that it was actually produced by Amazing Blue Cupboard shows the places that specialize in local food or that have local food that are within a 20-minute walk of the Diag. So there's the Ann Arbor Farmers Market, and the Ann Arbor Farmers Market is over 100 years old. It's been in the same location since the 1930s. And if you ever never been and you would like to go, I go almost every Saturday, and I think Julia goes quite regularly too, who's on this call. And I would, you can email me and I'm happy to introduce you to the farmers market. I'm actually on their advisory commission and I've done quite a bit of history of the farmers market. So always happy to tour people around and just get you oriented, but it's pretty self-explanatory. The other thing is you need to learn to cook with what's in season if you're going to do local food, and we'll talk about that in just a second. And then local food can be expensive, especially for things like milk and cheese and meat, because it's small scale production. It's not that huge industrialized agricultural system production. So thinking about that expense, and sorry, I have the farmers market. That's until right after Christmas. It'll be there's a Wednesday market and then there's a Saturday market. So it's also seasonal. And then the other place that it's amazing that we have here in Ann Arbor is Argus Farm Stop, and there's two of them, one on Liberty and one on Packard, and they're actually open daily. They have like a commission relationship with the farmers. So the farmers set the prices, and whatever sells, they get 75% of. Argus keeps 25% for their operating costs, and they also have a coffee shop, which is where that helps keep things running. They have, since they opened a few years ago, they have put at least $1 million a year back into the local food economy. It's been amazing, and they are really driving a lot of really creating an amazing local food system in Ann Arbor. Just want to briefly go over this issue of cost. There's a couple ways that if you are looking for deals on local food, you can find those deals. And one of them is to go to the farmers market sort of towards the end of the market day. And a lot of the farmers, if they have extras, if they haven't sold out already, which a lot of farmers do, but if they haven't sold out, they may have a surplus of things that they are not really don't want to take back to the farm. So they can give you a deal on it. If you do that, please ask politely and respectfully. And sometimes they just volunteer. If you look interested in something, they'll give you a deal on it. But it's usually things that they don't have many left of, or that they know it's not going to be preserved enough, as fresh enough as they'd want it if they were to take it back and then bring it to market again the next week. So things like apples, which store for a long time, and other things that store for a long time, they can bring those to market multiple times. So it's more things like the greens and stuff like that. And the other thing is that just recently, the amount of the opportunities for food assistance have really opened up for students, and Maize and Blue Cupboard can be helpful for this, but the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, has been extended during COVID. And I think this is now well entrenched for college students. It used to not to be open for college students before, but if your family contributions to your education are zero, or if you qualify for a work-study program, both a state and a federal work-study program, you can qualify for food assistance. And the amazing thing about qualifying for food assistance is then you can also qualify for this program called Double Up Food Bucks, which started here in Ann Arbor, Michigan by the Fair Food Network. It's an amazing program where if you go to places like the farmer's market or to Argus Farm Stop and you turn in $20 of your food assistance dollars, you get 40 in tokens, like at the farmer's market, that you can use. So it's actually doubling the amount of dollars that you have to spend on local food. The problem is the only two places in town where you can really use it is the farmer's market or Argus Farm Stop. And Argus just added that in over the last year or so. But it's an amazing program. So many people, it's really brought a diversity of people into the farmer's market who are buying fresh produce with this supplemental dollars. And it's actually often the farmers are watching who is coming in to use their Double Up Food Bucks to make decisions about what people want grown. So certain communities want certain things, and they will start then growing those crops. Just to give you a little statistics, at the Ann Arbor Farmers Market, a little over $37,000 in 2019 were redeemed. The Double Up Food Bucks were redeemed at the Ann Arbor Farmers Market. And I love this program because it not only helps people who need food assistance, who are in it gets those families and students and those people in need more fresh, locally grown Michigan produce, but it also helps the farmers too. It's just a brilliant program to bring the consumers and the food producers together in this very close relationship where they can help each other out. And boy, farmers, the local farmers that I don't know anybody who works any harder and takes so much pride in what they are able to do and in their work. So just want to end with this slide about what's in season in case you are interested in going to the Ann Arbor Farmers Market. This is a picture of the market last weekend, just as it was opening, and you can see apples and cider. The apples, our Michigan farmers do a great job storing them. Almost all the apples were picked in August, September, and October. But they do a beautiful job storing them, making cider. A lot of the places that have apples and cider also have those donuts, those delicious donuts and other baked goods. As you can see on the left-hand side, there's also a lot of Christmas greens at this time of year. And I think that table with the red cloth on it has locally produced honey, which is also amazing. And you can talk to those producers about the different types of honey that they're producing and what flowers it's from and things like that. And then there's a lot of squash at the market right now, all different sorts of squash. And then you can see the Napa cabbage in the front of this picture. And it is the season for root crops. So if you want carrots or radishes or turnips or potatoes, one of my favorite, this is a great time of year to get those. And I have to say, if you have not had locally grown potatoes, and Michigan is really known for its potatoes, they taste so much better than the commercially grown potatoes. And you can get pink potatoes and yellow potatoes and russet potatoes and white potatoes and purple potatoes. And I highly recommend that if you're a big potato eater like I am, that you try some potatoes. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And I am happy to answer any questions that anybody has. And I really hope that has like whet your appetite for thinking about some local food. And as I said, I go to the farmers market almost every Saturday. So I'm always happy to introduce people to the Ann Arbor Farmers Market. And I also am so blessed, I live within walking distance from Argus on Liberty. So 2 summers ago, I was in town for a month without a car, trying to see how well I could live without a car. And Argus was my saving grace.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead and feel free to unmute or type in the chat if you do have any.
I have a question. First of all, thank you for the great talk. That was very informative. But you talked a lot about buying local vegetables and produce at these markets, but do you have a favorite restaurant that uses locally sourced food in town?
Yeah, I do. So actually the one that used to be like our special place to go for anniversaries or dinners or things like that is the Grange. And unfortunately it closed during COVID. One that I've been to a couple times, but my son and my daughter really love is Fresh Forage. Unfortunately, it's not close to campus. It's out on Jackson Road, but if you're going to Myers, you drive right past it, and they're really great because they grow some of their own, and then they tell you where they get all their produce from. So that's a really great one, and the food's affordable, and it's bowls, so you get to pick what you want in it. Oh my gosh, I'm just drawing a blank right now on other local food places. There's actually a website, and it's surprising how many places try to order as local as they can. Like I think Jolly Pumpkin often orders local food, and Sava near campus. Does anybody else have a favorite local food place that they go to?
I haven't been to it yet, but there's a place in Ipsy called like Bellflower,
Yes.
which like I just like stalk their Instagram and it looks so good. But they like post about like where like the produce they get from like which farms they're getting like produce from. And I think they change their menu like every day or something, which is really impressive.
And I have been to Bellflower and Ipsy, and the food is amazing. If you're a vegetarian like I am, the menu is a little limited, but I had an eggplant dish there that was just stunning. And then my son splurged because we were taking him out, and he had a duck dish that he said was absolutely amazing. So, and there's actually quite a few duck producers in the area. So yes, Bellflower is really lovely. And like I said, I should have been prepared for this question. I'm just drawing a blank. So.
Thank you for all those great recommendations. As a non-Michigander, I will be visiting those very soon. Adriana, did you have a question? Or Ariana, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're totally good. I was just thinking about, you were talking about learning to make food that is sort of goes with the seasonal food. And as we're like going into winter, I don't know. I think I'm definitely more familiar with like summer seasonal fruits and vegetables and stuff, because I think winter's a lot more like squash and vegetables that I'm not super familiar with. So would you have any like favorite recipes to try, or just like easy, I don't know, college veggies that I should try incorporating?
Yeah. So actually I was just, Kathy Sample, who's one of the co-founders of Argus Farm Stop, was just in my class, and we were asking suggestions about how to introduce college-age students to local food. And one of the things that she was talking about was having cooking classes, which would be fun, and how fun to go into Argus and then maybe get your little packet to come home with. But one of the things I said to her that she was kind of appalled is because my son's graduated from college, but he's home with us right now. And I recently signed up for one of the Argus produce boxes because I knew there were a whole bunch of produce that I wasn't very familiar with and didn't use very much. And what I've seen him do, he really loves to cook ramen. And that's when he's throwing in all the different vegetables. I mean, it's got carrots and it's got onions in it and stuff like that. But he's like, oh, Mom, you got collard greens. I'm going to chop those up and put them in there. So if you're a ramen eater, I would suggest that. And then what was one of the staff at Argus telling me that she buys those packets of like easy Indian food at Trader Joe's. But then what she does is just adds a bunch of extra vegetables to them, like squash or peppers you can still get, things like that. So, and then Maize and Blue Cupboard has some recipes online that are easy sorts of things and often incorporate in some of the fresh produce that you're getting from that you can get from the campus farm. And then you can just look online for things that you get. There's an amazing CSA program in California that's called Farm Fresh to You. And they like deliver to 40,000 households. They aggregate the farms and things like that. It's amazing. But they have a lot of really cool recipes online. And the fun thing about them is they're recipes that you can make fast. Like I was like, what am I going to do with this fennel? And it was just like, chop it up, put olive oil on it, and then put Parmesan on it. You roast it in the oven. And oh my gosh, it was so delicious. And I could make it in like 20 minutes. So there's so many resources online, and there's online resources for cooking seasonally too. So that's my suggestion. But I would just think about also going to the farmers market, going to Argus. A lot of times the producers will have suggestions for you, or just pick it up and look it up on your phone and see if the recipe looks interesting. But you can start with the produce itself and then expand out from there. And the other thing that's fun about the squash around here is so many food producers are actually producing a diversity of different squashes, and they all cook up a little bit differently. So, but you can often look up a way to cook those squash, and there's so many resources online. So thanks for asking that question. And I really hope, my big thing was I'm not a big kale eater, but I discovered making kale chips with Parmesan cheese on it, and we really like it at my house now.
What a great question. Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any questions?
I have one. It's kind of like open-ended, but I guess like people talk about like local food getting into like supermarkets and like larger, like more like traditional like stores. Like what's like your opinion on how like Ann Arbor can do better on that, if needed at all, or yeah, like just beyond like even like co-ops and stuff like Kroger for example.
Yeah, so actually, I think because Michigan produce is so amazing and everybody's thinking about the diversity of produce, there are a lot of places that will carry local food often in season. And thank you for mentioning the co-op, because the People's Food Co-op does have a relationship with local food producers. I don't think Kroger's is very good at local food, but Myers is actually decent at local food. And the place that's close enough to my house is Bush's, often also carries local food. And then one of the specialty grocery stores in town, the alternative to Whole Foods, is called Arbor Farms. And they, for, oh my gosh, over a decade, have had a relationship with the Amish farmers that live in the area. And actually the person from the Agricultural Extension Office, that's the local food coordinator for Washtenaw County. We are the only county in Michigan that has a local food coordinator. That's part of the reason why our local food system is so strong. She was just telling me that Arbor Farms sat down with the Amish farmers and said, we really want to carry your stuff, but like we need regular peppers and things like that. So with them, they said, can you provide us peppers from when they first start coming in July or August through like October? And so the Amish families worked together and they provide them with local peppers throughout the pepper growing season. And that's just amazing, that that grocery store, it's a specialty grocery store, but was willing to do that relationship with the Amish farmers. And Amish farmers, they don't have a telephone, they don't drive themselves. So that was a lot of support and coordination and trust on the part of the farmers and the grocery store themselves. But I think what I've learned about local food is if customers want it, places will figure out how to get it. So I don't know who you talk to in Kroger's, and that might be a problem, but like if you're going shopping in Bush's or you're going shopping in Myers and you see the signs up for local food, and sometimes Myers doesn't market because it's work to market, but acknowledge to them that you're happy about having the local food option there for you. So, and the grocery stores, that's the other place where you can find a deal on local food, because if they've got a surplus of local food, then they put it on sale or things like that. But there's besides our small sort of Washtenaw County, there's amazing things happening in Detroit with some hydroponic production in the warehouses and things like that. And those lettuces I know I can buy at Bush's. So Double Up Food Bucks has made a difference too, because you can, there are some grocery stores, I don't think here in Ann Arbor, but that you can use your Double Up Food Bucks for. So yeah, thank you for asking that question. It's getting there more. And I think I haven't been to Whole Foods recently to shop for produce because I buy it at the farmer's market, but I think every once in a while they're also highlighting some local produce that they're getting into.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any more questions?
Yeah, I have a final question. So I guess what do you see as the next steps for local food at the university? Like we've been on the verge of hitting that 20% for the last couple years. So what do you think will get us to that number?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And actually the university hired the local food coordinator to do a study for them. And one of the things that's needed is what's called a food hub, or a place to aggregate lots of different local food coming in from the smaller producers. And I don't know if the university is ready to take that step in that direction. But one of the things that happened during COVID is that Argus Farm Stop had been moving to online ordering, and they'd been working actually with some of the preschools in the neighboring areas who wanted local food. And so they were like, wow, we got this big aggregation of food, you can online order from us. So it's a great question, and I don't know. And you can ask me at the end of next semester, because when I teach my food at U of M class that Julia took a couple years ago, I'm going to ask them that question. How are you going to get to that 20%? And remember that it's local and sustainable. So it's not just local. It's, buying the fair trade coffee and the fair trade teas and things like that, and organic produce. But yeah, I think it's going to be hard because they've done all the low-hanging fruit. And I'm sorry, that was a little bit of a pun there, but I think it's going to be interesting. And then what's the next goal after that 20%? Because they're almost there, and I think they can probably think about some slightly different purchasing and get there. But getting beyond that 20% is going to be really interesting to watch the university do. But you all can help with this by just really asking about local food and how much local food is in like the Blue to Go things. And like picking up a meal every once in a while at Maisie's, that includes things from the campus farm. I do think that there's a discussion about increasing the production from the campus farm. And I think that also helped make up several of those percentage points. That was the increase in 2020. So it's a great question, Julia. And I think, you know, this is the hard part with sustainability, is that you can often, the first steps, you can also often do fairly easily by just minor changes, but getting beyond those first steps requires all of us to do a lot of hard thinking and to really be changing the way we do things. But it's important for all of us to do those things.
Well, that seems like a great note to wrap up on. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us today. And thank you for our audience for being here for our last session of the learning series. It was really fun. You guys all asked some great questions. And as always, this session will be recorded and sent to all who have registered. So you can go back and watch it, share it. It'll be a YouTube link so you can share it around with your friends and take them to the farmer's market with you too after they watch the recording.
So yeah, thank you all for coming and asking the great questions. And I hope you get some great local food soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Young.
Bye. Thanks for inviting me, Julia.
Of course. Goodbye.
Bye.